Okay, well, good morning or good afternoon, depending very much where you're joining from. We're here for this online session. PV and storage, they are cheaper than coal in India today. There is already a project that has proven that this is the case. And this is the beginning of many, I'm sure. I see from today that we have people here from Spain, from Italy, from Japan, from India, amongst other places. Please keep sending, keep introducing yourselves. And this is only the beginning, because this is going to be a project that is going to attract a lot of attention. And today with us, we have three top experts. First, I'd like to ask each of you to introduce yourselves, please. So Rahul, if you could unmute your microphone, please, and introduce yourselves.
Uh, Thanks, Belen. Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Rahul Walawalkar. I'm founder and president of India Energy Storage Alliance, as well as I lead emerging technology practice for customized energy solutions, global consulting and services company, and also head the India operations for the company. I've been involved in energy storage area since 2004 and have worked very closely with policymakers and various stakeholders in getting energy storage for RE development in India over the last 8 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rahul. Actually, Rahul and I have met each other over like a World Bank Energy Storage Partnership a few months back, and we're actually co-hosting this webinar. So thank you very much for the Indian Energy Storage Alliance for putting this together and for talking about this amazing project. So next, I'd like to ask Bharat, please, if you could introduce yourself, just unmute yourself and.
Thank you, Belen. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Bharat Reddy, working with Solar Energy Corporation of India. It's the nodal agency for development of renewable energy projects in the country. I'm heading the technical division in the company. Okay, I've been working with on hybrid tenders with storage or solar wind hybrids and all. Okay, and some innovative tenders from past 5-7 years. Okay, it is about me. Okay, let's see. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bharat. And last but certainly not least, Shashank, please, if you could introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Belen. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shashank Katlakha. I work with Renew Power. Renew Power is an IPP based out of India and with the largest installed capacity of almost 5 gigawatts plus. I have been in the renewable industry now for the last 14 years. And at Renew, presently, I am heading the new business division, which largely focuses on hybrids and storage. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much to the three of you. And now I'm going to ask Rahul, if you can please prepare your presentation, unmute your microphone. And in the meanwhile, whilst Rahul does that, I'm just going to let you know, you guys in the audience, we're going to have three presentations today from Rahul, from Bharat, and from Shashank. And then we will take questions through the Q&A box. Please don't send them through the chat. You know, for any chats and introducing yourselves, you can use the chat. But please use the question and answer box for sending the questions. They're easier to manage, and we will try and have some time at the end to answer them. This is a very important project, so we really cannot wait. I cannot wait to hear more about it. So go ahead, Rahul. Remember to unmute your microphone. We can see your screen, but I can see that you are muted still. And just one thing, we are recording this session, and you will get both the recordings and the materials in your inbox in a few days. Go ahead, Rahul.
Yeah, thank you very much, Belen. So I'm here to just set the context, and then I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Bharat and Shashank, both of whom are the practitioners and behind the flagship projects which everyone is interested about. So my role is just to introduce everything. So just for some of the new members who may not be familiar about India Energy Storage Alliance, IESA is a premier alliance focusing for promotion of energy storage and e-mobility in India. It was started by me in 2012, and it has grown from 5 members to now close to 100 members over the span of last 8 years. And we are proud that both Solar Energy Corporation of India as well as Renew have been part of the alliance and are working very closely in accelerating adoption of these technologies in India. the members are spread across the world. There are majority of the members have presence in India, but we do have presence in North America, European Union, APAC region, as well as in Middle East. And the members span the entire range of ecosystem, right from ESS players, renewable players, utilities, R&D entities, e-mobility companies, as well as component suppliers. So without further delay, why RE plus energy storage? I think in last decade, we have seen amazing growth of renewable energy, starting with wind, but then most recently solar energy, where both wind and solar have become now most cost-effective energy resources for the grid. And it is not just because of their environmental attribute, but just in terms of the economics. Now, the only challenge with getting more renewable energy is related to the variability, because traditionally the grid operators have been used to managing the grid variability on demand side by dispatching thermal generation or hydro generation. But as now on supply side also more variability is getting added, there are challenges related to the grid inertia. Also, since renewable energy resources typically are concentrated in certain geographical areas, as well as the output is not spread throughout the day or throughout the season. So RE curtailment also has been a challenge for both independent power producers as well as the utilities. Especially in the Indian context, India is now surplus in terms of the overall generation. But the challenge is majority of the conventional generation has limitation in terms of the flexibility. And although there are a number of groups trying to see if we can just upgrade the existing thermal generation to improve the flexibility, I think ultimately in terms of the environmental objective where RE is being pushed for, the energy storage can play a very key role. We are also seeing now there are new regulations such as demand side management, deviation settlement mechanism is coming up, as well as there are real-time markets, ancillary service markets are getting introduced. So there are again, I think, a better opportunities for renewable energy plus storage as a hybrid units in the modern scenario. At a high level, this discussion about RE plus storage started in US when in 2013, California Independent System Operator did some simulations to show that by 2020, California would face a problem, what became famous as a California duct, where they said that the lower base load in the afternoon is going to be a problem. And with India's goal of getting 100 gigawatt solar by 2022, India would also face somewhat a similar curve. Although since India has a relatively flatter load curve, the shape we are calling it as an Indian camel curve. But this is something which is a real challenge, and in terms of the ramp rate requirements for the grid, this is one of the biggest challenge for the system operators for next decade. Now in India, the grid situation has been improving in last 10 years. And according to number of parameters, Indian grid is now in much better situation as compared to maybe 10 years back in terms of the reliability, in terms of the power quality. But still in terms of the international parameters, we are way off. Just to give you an example, internationally, most of the developed countries have the grid frequency managed within a band of 0.02 hertz, whereas in India right now the grid frequency deviates almost from 49.65 to 50.3, so almost like a 0.7 hertz as a band, which is much better than what it used to do 10 years back, but still definitely not suitable for making India a global hub for manufacturing, which is ambition for the Prime Minister and Indian government. So we think there is a lot more effort required in balancing the variability both on the demand side as well as on the generation side. And just to get the big elephant out of the room, technically, yes, you can achieve this with marrying renewable power with thermal resources, but there are a number of studies globally which have been done which demonstrate that if you are using thermal power, particularly coal-based power, to back up variability of renewables, then you lose more than 20% of the CO2 emission reductions, because you are now operating thermal plants at a lower plant load factor, and they are operating inefficiently. And also particularly for the local air pollution, for sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide, you may lose as much as 100% benefit. So since India, especially in last 2-3 years, there is a lot more awareness about air quality, I think it is very important that we don't try to just match these resources thinking about economics. We need to also factor in why in the first place we are adding all these renewables, and that's where RE plus storage makes sense. And as I'll show in next few slides, even economically, we are reaching at a point where RE plus storage is actually a better solution for the grid as well as for consumers. We, as I mentioned in my introduction, we have been working very closely with various policymakers, right from MNRE, Prime Minister's Office, as well as various ministries to get this ecosystem going. But this has been a long journey, and over the last 8 years, step by step, we have achieved number of progressive steps in terms of working with Central Electricity Regulatory Commission, Central Electricity Agency, as well as agencies like SECI in trying to get the market ready for these projects. So again, sometimes it feels it's too long, but since I've been involved in some of these areas for almost 15 years internationally, I can say that to some extent, actually, Indian policymakers have taken some of these steps in a similar pace at which these rule changes have happened around the world. I wish going forward we actually start leapfrogging and increase the pace of these changes, but so far we have done reasonably well. Now, coming to the technology side, when it talk about energy storage, there are a range of technologies available. It is no longer just a pumped hydro and lead acid batteries, which was the case maybe 10 or 15 years back. There are a range of electrochemical batteries, including lithium-ion batteries, flow batteries, sodium-based batteries, which are available. And depending on the application, depending on what duration, what size project you want, you may choose different technology. And also there are hydrogen fuel cells coming up. There are pumped hydro and compressed air energy storage technologies available. So there are a lot of choices available for doing RE plus storage hybrids. Again, I'm pretty sure Dr. Bharat will go into more details of this, but I wanted to highlight that when you're talking about hybrid projects, it is not just about wind plus solar, but ideally you need wind plus solar plus storage, because when you're looking at variability in terms of the month-to-month variation as well as within a day, you find out that there are definitely certain times where both solar and wind may not be sufficient to meet the demand. And since we are aspiring towards a grid where we do not want to have any power outages or load shedding, I think it is very important that we factor this in. So to share some of the details about the analysis, what we have done for this project, and I'm sure both Shashank and Bharat will share more details. The first hybrid project with SECI awarded has a project capacity of 1200 megawatt with 6 hours of energy storage. And the solar for the off-peak tariff for it is 2.88 kilowatt hour. And the peak tariff is higher, so the levelized cost is coming to somewhere around 4 to 4 rupee 30 paise, and which is we expect going forward for future project. If SECI keeps on coming up with similar project, this price can actually reduce based on the cost reduction expected in solar as well as cost reduction expected in storage. But to go beyond just the specific SECI project, because we think there are a lot of different flavors of these hybrid projects can come up. So there are a number of parameters which you need to consider while coming up with prices. And it's not just like a solar where you just have one technology and you are just calculating levelized tariff. For looking at a hybrid project, there are a number of parameters, including the underlying tariff for RE, but also what storage technology you are choosing, what is the round trip efficiency, how fast you can charge discharge, how many cycles the storage technology can provide, how much deep cycling you can do. All these parameters would determine the levelized tariff of storage. So depending on your assumptions, also if you are trying to do it for just smoothing where you can use just 1 hour storage, or are you doing it for firming where you can use 4 hour or longer storage, the price points are going to be different. So again, if there are any policymakers or customers, I would like you to pay attention to these differences, because there is a tendency, especially in India, where as soon as one project numbers are released, everyone starts expecting same numbers, even if their project parameters are different. So this is very important for everyone to consider. Also, in terms of the storage projects, depending on the technologies chosen as well as the scale of the project, is it at a kilowatt scale, is it at a megawatt scale, is it at hundreds of megawatt scale, the price points could be different. And also in press, number of time you keep on hearing prices about just batteries or cells, which is completely different than the completely system integrated cost, where there are a number of components from the DC system to the control safety systems, power conversion systems, and then there are additional costs for site preparation, the balance of the grid. So all these factors needs to be considered. So you need to understand these nuances while choosing the right project. For this, as a CES, we have actually developed a sophisticated software platform called Comets, which have been used by more than 50 system integrators and project developers in last decade for large-scale projects, where you can actually factor in your various renewable energy profiles as well as technical parameters related to the energy storage technologies, and come up with dispatch simulations and understand how a particular application or duty cycle will impact your warranties or the performance requirement for the storage, and take a comprehensive decision on how do you want to size as well as operate the project during the operational life. So there are again just some nuances where again, depending on this project, the SECI projects are all grid connected, but there are some of the large commercial industrial customer who are also considering RE plus storage as a microgrid. So there again, you are going to have some nuances in how the storage will get dispatched. And this is something which needs to be understood before you choose the technology and appropriate sizing. I'm sure both Shashank and Bharat will go in more details into it. So overall, as IESA, we are quite optimistic about the overall market. We think we are just at the start of this creating this new market, and depending on how some of the national energy storage mission related demand policies kick in, as well as some of the other policies for thermal technologies and others kick in, there is some big uncertainty in terms of how big the market could be. But even at a base level, at a worst case scenario, the market is going to be amongst the top 5 market. And if the market develops more positively with support from government, then I'm pretty sure India would be amongst the top 2 markets globally for such RE plus storage projects. We also feel that as the technology is evolving, the duration of projects will start going up. So right now we expect like 1 to 2 hours as the initial projects, but from 2022 onwards, we expect 4 hours or longer projects will also be there. So overall, we expect as a base case scenario between 2020 to 26, more than 250 gigawatt hour of market demand. In a optimistic case, this number is more than 350 gigawatt hour. And again, if you need to know more about it, IESA each year publishes a detailed report, market overview report, which is available to IESA members, or non-members can also purchase it separately. Also tomorrow, we are releasing a detailed knowledge paper on the need for hybrids in renewable sector. So again, if you are interested, please reach out to us. And also as a customized energy solutions, we provide a monthly market intelligence where we discuss about various policy developments. So again, especially for project developers or IPPs, this is a very useful resource to stay on top of policy changes which can affect your projects. Also, last, just a small plug, SECI has actually released a concept paper for these hybrid projects and have asked for inputs next week. So we will be taking notes from all the discussion and question and answer happens today, but also along with some of the other renewable energy associations, IESA is hosting a CXO roundtable tomorrow between 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. IST. So again, if there are any audience members and their CXOs of the companies who would be interested in joining this roundtable, please reach out to Devyani Sarunke, my colleague at IESA. So that's it from my side. I would like to hand it back to Belen and Bharat for taking the discussion forward.
Thank you very much, Rahul. Let me just take this off the screen so that I can ask Bharat to please share his screen. And thank you very much, Rahul. There is a lot of things that you guys are doing, and people can join in many different ways. So please get in touch if you would like to join or you would like to ask any further questions. But for now, you do have 2 questions, so you can answer those by text if you like. And Bharat, if you share your screen and you unmute your microphone, that would be great. There has been a question about the materials and the recordings. Don't worry, we will send you the materials, a link to the materials and the recordings just in a few days. Perfect. Now we can see your screen. If you can make that into a large, perfect. Can you take your mute off? Perfect.
Yes, yes.
Okay, go ahead then.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Belen.
This is gone again, sorry, Bharat, it's gone again into smaller, it's gone, we can see the slides on the side.
Is it okay now?
Now it's perfect, yes.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Rahul has given complete overview of the storage market, storage applications in India, what's going on. I'll speak on what are the new initiatives we are taking in Solar Energy Corporation of India under the guidance of Ministry of New Renewable Energy. Okay, so in in deploying a new type of RE projects, not like the simple plain vanilla RE projects. So I'll give you some brief background about that, why we are going to that. Okay, and then what will be our plans, like that I will tell you. So these are the achievements in the RE sector. We already crossed 87 gigawatt in the way to reach 175 gigawatt. Okay. So lot many capacities are under implementation. But our target is continuously it's moving now towards 450 gigawatt by 2030. But we have to see how to achieve this target. Okay, there are many challenges to achieve this target. What are the challenges? First one is all of you know that any RE technology, solar or wind, they're having intermittent generation. Generation is it's not really firm enough. Okay, so because of that, we have to continuously depend on the conventional sources. We cannot completely do away with. Okay, even some part of that, if we continue to do the plain vanilla projects of solar or wind, we have to continuously have the thermal projects for balancing requirements. So there is no we are just developing the capacities. We are not able to completely do away with that with thermal projects. So we have to look seriously into that. And when thermal projects are there in the system, we have to maintain them at some technical minimum. So we then, what is the way? Way out is the only to curtail the RE power. That's again a big problem. Then Rahul was showing that duck curve or camel curve, whatever the curve. So it will definitely happen. You see in the right side, the curves are there. The orange one is the net of RE curve. So these are the curves you're getting. Means by 2030, the solar generation is more than the load actually. So how to handle that? So means we are not afford to lose the clean and even now it's a cheaper power now. Okay, so we cannot afford. So we have to see the ways to implement the projects. Okay. And this also requires, if you go for a simple plain vanilla project, requires a huge transmission network also in the country. At least 300 gigawatt transmission network is required. But because of the low PLFs, the utilization of the transmission network is also, it's not properly used. Okay. Some studies are there indicating that it's a PASUCO NREL study by 2022 says that at 160 gigawatt RE scenario, 27 gigawatt of curtailment will be there in the month of September. Okay. This by 2030 scenario, even the curtailment increases up to more than 50%, which is quite alarming. We have to address this. And we also analyzed that means how the energy mix should, if we continue to deploy simple plain vanilla projects, what will happen? So our results also saying that more or less same curtailment levels will be there. Okay, then we thought of doing some strategic development of RE projects. We came out with 3 different solutions depending on the energy demand curve of the country. Okay, so if you closely observe the demand curve, we have 3 regions are there in the curve. One is the firm baseload region. Okay, there you need 24/7 power. Okay, and some parts are there where the morning and evening peaks are there. It varies from utility to DISCOM to DISCOM or utility to utility. And some utilities, their night load is very less. They need power of around 12 to 14 hours, 16 hours power with some firmness. So these 3 are the things we identified, and we started working on developing bids for these projects. Okay. So what is the advantage? By doing so, there are many advantages. We can go for high PLF of the projects. In case of peaking power, we are getting around 40% PLF now. The firm and flexible renewable energy, we just released the concept note for discussion, as Rahul was briefing to you. 60% PLF we are planning to mandate there. In the round the clock, we already concluded the bid. Their PLF is 80%. So with that, high PLF means it's good for the DISCOMs also, where their transmission cost will be less, and it leads to no curtailment RE power. And also we should not forget that the ramping up and ramping down is the biggest problem to the load dispatch centers or someone. Okay, so to manage the grid. So by doing this type of projects, we can even reduce the ramping issues also. So this is our simulation on how, if we go for this type of innovative projects. So how the energy energy mix of various technologies will be there. So if you see this, we are not seeing any bellies actually in this curve, RE bellies. Okay, so we are able to quite flexibly maintain the, especially the gray one is the thermal portion. Okay, so we are able to maintain at least their technical minimums and also the peaks whenever it required. So the managing grid is quite easy with this type of introduction of this type of plants. So we identified some capacities for 2022 and 2030, but it takes some time. Okay, so the concept has to go into all the utilities' mind. Okay, we are in continuous discussion with them. Okay, so then slowly we can increase this hybrid projects capacities along with the plain vanilla solar. So we will not completely do away with the plain vanilla projects. We have to keep some capacities for off-grid and some grid-connected projects. So I'll quite briefly explain you the results about the various projects we have concluded. First tender we released for RE projects with peak power supply. We have given some defined some peak hours like morning 6 to 9 a.m. and evening 6 to 12 p.m. These are the peak hours we defined. We have given the flexibility to the utility to decide on what hours they need. Actually, morning 1 hour, morning 2 hours, evening 4 hours. We are given the flexibility, so they can choose hours actually. Accordingly, the developer of the project should deploy the minimum assured capacity during these peak hours. We concluded this tender 2 months back, and the results were good. Okay, as Rahul was also presenting, These are the results of this tender. The weighted average tariff of the complete tariff is around 3.96 we got from both the projects by taking the PLF into account, means provided by the project developers. This is quite means competitive also in compared to the thermal power means being taken by the discounts from this, especially from the new projects. And the advantage here is the high PLF. As I told, high PLF is always advantage for them. Let us say for 20% PLF projects, they'll be paying some X amount of the X amount for the transmission charge. Now for 40% PLF, they'll pay less for the transmission charge. The transmission charge here in India, we have both the central transmission utility and state utility. Even though central is socialized now, the state charges will always be applicable. So with the high PLF, they can reduce the charges actually, which are significantly high actually. The other one is then other tender we released is the RTC tender. This is for completely to replace the baseload plants with thermal plants. One of the utility asked us to do this tender. Two utilities in fact, they asked us to release this type of tender. Then we worked out on various modalities, almost in analogy with the thermal power plants. So we have given, we have specified the requirement as 80% CF annually, 70% CF monthly. And if they don't achieve this, penalties are huge. And we allowed to begin with initially we have to go with some leeways we have given. We allowed here multiple injection points. Okay, initially it will because of this the storage will be less. Slowly we will go into the single injection point projects also, and also some flexibility to the discounts also we are planning. There the energy storage deployment will be more. Tariff escalation we have given, which is almost on par with the thermal projects. Okay, so we are giving 3% annual escalation for 15 years. And we allowed excess generation if any, because of multiple injection points we have given, obviously more capacity will be here. Okay, so excess generation can be sold in the open market. That we have given. Because at this moment we cannot afford storage, means huge amount of storage because of high cost of storage. Well, slowly the storage cost comes down. We completely slowly tighten this leeways also we have given, so that we'll get more firm and flexible power here, even in round the clock basis also. And this tender also promotes the quasi merchant power. Government of India is planning for merchant power also, because simply by merchant means market-based PPAs, no one will fund the projects. This type of projects will consume around 70-80% of the power generated from the projects, and 20% we may go to the open market. This is again a way to make slightly open the merchant market also. And the results is the tender was subscribed by 2.1 times. Okay. The first year tariff, after bidding, we received as 2.91 per kilowatt hour. The levelized tariff is around 3.59 after accounting for the escalation, 3.59. This tariff is very attractive for the utilities because it is a very clean power, and also they can fulfill the renewable obligations which are there in India. And if you compare with the thermal projects, the tariff and the power is always competitive, directly in the tariff terms and also in the indirect terms of environmental impact or water consumption. All these things are there. So it will definitely save around some million tons or 2.38 million tons of CO2 compared with the thermal projects. These are all the indirect benefits. So directly, if you compare with the tariff, recently one tender was concluded for new thermal tender in India. The tariff was around 4.9 per kilowatt hour. Some escalation is there in the variable tariff there. So in comparison with that, the tariff we achieved in RTC renewable energy project is quite competitive. And the next one we are about to release the tender is that on the firm and flexible RE projects for 12 to 16 hours delivery. In this, they must deliver means fixed supply for complete duration. And DISCOMs may ask them to maybe back down by plus or minus 10-20%. We have to discuss and decide on that. Okay, we have called for a consultation meeting on that, and we are mandating at least minimum 60% PLF. That's again we'll decide with the on the discussion. Means during the discussion with stakeholders. So slowly we are trying. What we are trying to do is that we are understanding the requirements of the DISCOMs. And we are making this renewable energy so firm and flexible. All these three types of means new tenders, new projects. What we are planning will definitely must have some major element of storage will be there. I'm not saying explicitly here in the project, but it is inherent that storage will be the part of that. Without that, it is not possible. So that we are parallelly means creating market for energy storage also in the country. To conclude, this is the time to work in India because whatever the 80-85 gigawatt we achieved, so we are able to manage with the overcapacities in the conventional power. We are able to manage. Still, at some places we are facing some curtailments of the renewable energy. At this moment, it is not so painful. Maybe in the maybe 2-3 years down the line, it will be definitely increase and it will be so painful for the project developers. We need to understand this. Okay, so the initial two tenders, the peak power tender and the RTC tenders are the first steps in this direction. So based on the response, slowly we'll ramp up this type of tenders. We are working for all the different needs of the DISCOMs now. Tariffs are means okay. It's so even though they're slightly higher in comparison with the thermal, they are good. DISCOMs also, they will realize that the benefits of the low balancing cost associated with single projects. Okay, high PLF is again attraction for the DISCOMs, so that they can reduce the CTU or STU charges, the transmission charges. So SECI is trying to continue to work with the various stakeholders in the market, including utilities and the developers and associations like IESA, to work on innovative tenders time to time based on the requirements of the utilities. Ultimately, we have to serve the our end customer, whoever is there in the industry. The end customer is utility. We have to serve them in a proper way. We're working for that. Thank you very much for patient listening. Thank you, Belen, for over to you.
Thank you very much, Bharat. It's great to really understand how much is going on. Seems like there's a lot going on, and hopefully the prices will continue to come down. Shashank, last but not least, I would ask you please to share your presentation and get ready. And there is a few questions already. I can't wait. As soon as the next presentation is over, we'll ask a few questions to the three of you. And just for those people who keep on asking, yes, you will get the materials. Don't you worry. I know they're very interesting. They pack a lot of information, so you will get access to those. I'll ask Rahul and Bharat and also Shashank to send them to me so that we can make sure that everyone receives them. Perfect, Shashank. We can see it perfect. Go ahead.
All right. And thank you so much. And thank you, Dr. Rahul and Dr. Bharat for setting the context and hopefully what I have to share will carry that on. So what I'm going to be sharing today with you all is how my company, that's Renew, what do we feel about storage and what is our perspective towards it. I think, and as both Dr. Rahul and Dr. Bharat mentioned, the RE penetration across major states has increased significantly. Given that it is intermittent in nature, the government will begin actually to rely on storage linked tenders. So that's what actually Dr. Bharat and Dr. Rahul actually had shared as well. And if you look, we are already on certain states in AP, in Telangana, in Rajasthan, in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, we are already touching almost 25% plus. So some of these issues which were actually highlighted, which actually will come now, is intermittent generation in terms of absence of scheduling and forecasting, DSM penalties, fluctuating generation, leading to the grid can't manage it. And obviously, all that will actually end up resulting in backdowns or curtailments. And as I was shared earlier, so those are quite significant in number, which are being forecasted by POSOCO both in 2022 as well as in 2030. So, and therefore, as all of this will happen, so the government obviously has recognized the need, as Dr. Bharat had said, that SECI is looking at various kind of constructs right now. And obviously everybody understands that storage integrated with RE generates a smooth, firm, and a dispatchable output that is controllable. So therefore we expect that storage linked tenders will probably become the norm as we go ahead, especially in states which have a higher RE penetration as well. And we believe that the market will be will depend on different, or rather it will be shaped and driven by medium value use cases for RE integration. So, for example, if you see this here at the top, which has a circle on it, that becomes a sweet spot for the storage actually from a growth perspective. There are other issues, other points here as well which can be used, but as the system sizes increases and as the discharge duration increases, that's where the sweet spot of storage would settle in. And if you look at through Lux Research, what they had done earlier, the cheapest storage technology per use case. So typically, the higher you go on your discharge duration, that's where you have cases, let's say like at present cost, pump hydro and sodium sulfur and thereabouts kind of trying to fit into the thing. Or otherwise, all the way from 0.25 hours to about 8 hours, and from say up till almost about 100 megawatts or maybe even higher, you probably have lithium ion as being the case. Okay, now coming to the Indian storage market, that has so far seen only demonstration level projects. For example, we had the PGCIL do energy shift and a frequency regulation ramp rate control project of 0.25 megawatt hour in Puducherry. Again, a second project there done with lithium. CEL had done a 0.5 megawatt hours in Delhi. NLC, Andaman and Nicobar. Tata Power, the 10 megawatt hour battery, which was done by Fluence. There are a few projects under implementation as well. The SECI project in Kaza, which is under implementation. Hopefully, over the course of the next 1 year, it will get done, as well as the one which is being planned for Lakshadweep. And then there was the large scale storage tender, which everybody is aware of, which is the peak part 1200 megawatt and the RTC 400 megawatt. And plus there is a new kind of a tender construct, which is at 5 gigawatt RE plus thermal, which is being talked about right now. So the message here is that while we saw only demonstration level projects, but a recent string of large scale projects have shown a clear signal of intent from SECI, from MNRE and from the government in which direction this is all headed to. Just taking a step back and looking at global scale, so there have been a lot of RE and storage projects where a lot of large scale projects are already operational in Europe, in America, in Australia, somewhat in China. So there have been fairly large size significant projects which are already there. So one might say that we are a little bit late to join the bandwagon, but I think we are just in time. I don't think we are late on that respect. So what do we expect? So the last analysis which BNEF, Lux Research, and the ATA Insights team had done, we expect almost, and taking a cue from there, we expect almost 5 billion of RE and storage deals to be announced in 2020, and a shift in focus from best players who will now kind of prioritize performance over price. And just a couple of thoughts on that. So energy storage, we're clearly seeing it spreading beyond US and China. So it's got India, Latin America, and the Middle East. A lot of projects were announced in these countries during that time. Many storage battery providers are apprehensive once we spoke to them about it, about a race to the bottom on cost, but are now instead focusing on performance, safety, and lifetime of the product. Example, CATL is now developing a lithium iron phosphate battery with a more than 10,000 cycle life. and a 100 megawatt hour pilot project for this is already under construction in China. So what enables this in the best place is that you have falling energy storage costs coupled with the ongoing adoption of renewable energy in key markets, and therefore we feel will encourage co-location at an unprecedented rate. And if you recall what Dr. Rahul had showed on his presentation, it was just like what we call as a hockey stick kind of a graph, which is just going to start off in 2020, 2019 at a very small number, and then kind of expand very vigorously as you head out into 2025 and 2026. So lastly, so what the other thing is that RE, the price points are kind of consistently coming down. People are innovating in these projects and pushing the tariff down. The other thing which is happening as well, the storage systems or the price for these storage systems is also expected to trend significantly downwards over the course of the next, say, 5 to 7 years, which we feel is going to be enabling the growth of adoption of storage systems, the grid storage systems, to a large extent. Right? So that's all from my side, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Shashank. It was brief but really good. And let's see, there are questions. So I'm just going to go ahead and ask them if you like. Could you open your microphones? Let's do this open mic type thing. So, whomever wants to answer, you're welcome to add things. Let's just kind of go with the flow a little bit. So the first thing is, one of the questions here is, let me see. What do you think about the possibility of raising the storage hours above 4 hours? Is it possible? Is it feasible? Is it worth it? Who wants to take the lead here? Rahul?
Sure. So I can start, and then I'm sure Bharat or Shashank both may add. Yes, in fact, there are different scenarios, especially as you start going beyond 30–40% renewables, where you may need longer duration storage. We are already starting to see in some of the regions like PJM or California, there the system operators are looking at sort of a 10-year as a requirement for giving capacity credits for projects. So there is definitely a trend. There are, in fact, we are working globally with companies like Malta and others, where they are specifically looking at even non-electrochemical batteries, or other companies working on flow batteries, which could be optimally sized for even more than 10 hours kind of a duration. But we need to sort of wait and watch in terms of the market development. I think in scenarios like microgrids, definitely I think even 10-hour or longer could be applicable for islands. In India, we have cases like Andaman Nicobar Islands, which are completely powered right now on a diesel generators, where even 4 years back, RE plus storage was economical. So these are the kind of projects where I think India needs to focus on for looking at longer duration projects, while the mainstream projects, which will happen, I think, around the world with around 4 to 6 hour storage based on the current status of the technologies. But we do expect going forward beyond 2022, we will start seeing even longer duration storage and opportunities emerge.
Would any of you like to add, Bharat, Shashank?
Yes. Actually, we are working on a number of projects with, in fact, we mention it as 3-hour storage, but actual delivery will be more than 4 hours or 6 hours, depending. Complete evening hours we are planning to deliver through storage only in some of the solar plus storage tenders. Okay, we are working on those things now. In the other tender also, the firm and flexible tender, if someone plans with solar plus storage, they must definitely go for at least 4 hours storage there, which is economical also, 4 hours storage. So we are working on it. It is possible also.
I just have a couple of points to share here. One is just, if you look at the overall renewable energy into the grid at the moment, we are at about, the national average is roughly at around 10–12% right now. So so we still have some runway available for integrating RE into the grid without technically using storage. So we still have some runway available there. But having said that, there are obviously issues in certain states where as I said earlier in my presentation, that the penetration is significantly higher. And therefore, our belief is that we definitely need storage. but we probably need only about say 1 to 2 hours of storage at the moment at those times when the DISCOMs actually need it. But over the course of the next say 3 to 4, 5 years, as the renewable energy penetration increases, we will probably see a trend towards a higher number of hours of storage which would be needed, and that's just is in sync with what Dr. Rahul had also said. And the third thing, the third point here is that storage prices are going to get definitely cheaper over the course of the next 3, 4, 5 years, and therefore having a 4 to 5 years, why would you want to commit to 4 to 5 hours of storage when perhaps 2 years later you can commit at a much lower price?
Okay, so you're saying like let's do just the 2 hours that we need now, and then in the future we'll revisit once the prices have gone down.
Because the projects we build today are going to come up, let's say, in the next 18 to 24 months. So and by then we would probably just be requiring a 2 to 3 hours of storage. The projects which we build, let's say, start building maybe 18 or 24 months later, those certainly can be on higher amounts of storage.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, the grid in India is very much baseload, right? Like a very huge chunk of it is still thermal, but this is going to shift over time.
Correct.
Belen, just to add, in fact, for some of the technologies, like particularly with, say, lithium-ion battery technology, actually, you don't need to make that decision right now. As Shashank mentioned, maybe right now the business case is for 4-hour storage and you can do it. And maybe in 3 years or 4 years, if the business case demands longer storage, you can just incrementally add storage. At the same time, if there are projects where you really need that longer duration, then you may choose a different technology, but that flexibility is there. And for some of the people who doubt if this will happen, I would just say that we can learn from what happens with other technologies, right? For example, if you just look at the storage of memory or the hard disk storage on your laptops or phones, who maybe just even 5 years back would have imagined that you will be carrying a 256 GB hard disk on your phone in your pocket. I remember when I started my career in an IT company, I think across 6 desktop computers, we had, I think, 2 GB as a total hard disk capacity. So these are the things where I think till the technology evolves and the prices come down, people just assume that there is no use case. But as the technology evolves, I think the business cases also end up evolving. So we still think that, yeah, the long duration storage will play a key role, especially when you look at like a next 10-year and beyond scenario.
You know, the interesting thing, Rahul, is that definitely my phone keeps sort of having more memory, but then I have to still like plug it in all the time, you know. So even though, you know, the memories have gone up, the batteries seem to like just not really do that much better, interestingly, but because the phone is so much more, you know, has much more capacity. So there is
that's an interesting point, Belen. Just to add on that, in fact, we are creating some infographics to address this question, because a number of times people do end up sort of blaming batteries or thinking that battery technology is not evolving fast enough. But just on the size, if you think of it, right, the first grid scale energy storage project, which was deployed by AES back in 2010, it had a 250 kilowatt hour energy storage in a 20-foot container. So in a 40-foot container, which is a standard size, they could have packed around 500 kilowatt hour. Whereas right now we are looking at almost around 6 megawatt hour plus storage in a same size container. So while we focus a lot on the cost reduction in last 10 years, also amazing improvement have been done on the technology in improving energy density, not just at a cell level, but by better battery management system, the better system integration, better cooling. At a system level, the systems have become much more compact. Just imagine, like, if you had a same size of battery on your phone with a technology which was used by, say, Motorola for their brake, and
probably have 3 months worth of battery.
Yeah, you would have had to maybe carry a 30 kg phone on a trolley behind you.
Yeah, like the old phones. Okay, it's interesting. Actually, I'm very interested in seeing those infographics. Please remember to send them to me, because that's the kind of thing that I love, you know, when you see things slightly differently. Why did SECI give, this is for you, Bharat, a 3% annual escalation when the CapEx is sunk? How high is the OPEX component?
No, there is no OPEX component here. It's only CapEx only in the solar, in the RE projects actually. But only thing is that these are the initial projects. We have to make the tariff attractive to the utilities, because so far the reference is the plain vanilla projects. So with reference to the plain vanilla project, if you are going too away from that psychological figure, so that will be difficult to sell also, okay, to accept by the utilities, okay. So to make it more attractive, we made this, okay. I think I have answered that. Okay.
Okay, let me just, if I may move it, we have so many open questions right now. I don't know if you've seen, but we have 16 open questions. So I'm going to try and ask some of this and see if we can be short because we have literally 4 minutes to go. The life cycle of a lithium-ion battery and renewable energy, wind and solar, are quite different. Does it lead to challenges when pricing renewable energy plus storage projects for a fixed time, say 15 or 25 years? Rahul, we don't hear you well.
Can you hear me?
No. Can you guys hear him? Or is it just me?
No,
Yes,
signal
I think it is.
bad, yeah.
Try unplugging and plugging back in the sound. No?
Is it better now?
No,
No.
it's robotic.
Okay, so maybe Shashank, you can answer this question.
Okay, Shashank, you answer the question. Yeah.
Let me take a stab at it in terms of what I think. See, typically, see, and both Rahul did mention it in his presentation also, that you'll have to understand as to, while you may have a fixed life for your projects, let's say in solar and wind for 15 years or 25 years, as for the power purchase agreements are, but you'll also have to figure out what's the number of cycles your battery is going to go through, what's your depth of discharge, what is your charge management strategy, what is going to be your augmentation strategy over the course of the next 15-20 years, when are you actually going to replace racks, etc. So, and that really will determine actually how long will your battery last. So it's not only the attribute that, yes, I get it off the shelf from a vendor, and who says that, okay, your rated life is 5,000 cycles and therefore it's 5,000, but over what period of time are you going to use the 5,000 cycles? Are you going to use them over 10 years, or you're going to use them over 15 years, or are you going to use them in 5 years? So that's really what will drive your overall cost of the storage in that.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
No, you sound robotic. Is it maybe the microphone? You can switch it on, like take it off and back on or something? It's really strange that this happens. I was going to say it's the battery, but it's not really. It's just a bad joke. Okay, try now. Have you unplugged it and plugged in?
Yeah, better now.
No.
Okay, yeah, I guess that's it. I have almost what it is. Maybe I'll let that.
I'm really sorry. It sounds like it's your sound card or something. I don't know. It's gone really strange.
He's mentioning that he'll send in his response to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yes, thank you. And I'm sorry about these problems. Okay, so more questions. You have talked about a pilot of 100 megawatt hour BESS, but to attend a peak of 4 hours, you need 400 megawatt hours at utility scale. Do you believe that we will see that in 5 years from now at prices competing with thermal peaker plants? Is the last question on the line. Manuel
Definitely, definitely we'll see this. So many such projects actually, and the prices goes down. Mostly, many projects will come with a simple solar plus storage or simple wind plus storage. Okay, where we need at least 5 to 6 hours of storage. Okay, so it will definitely come. Maybe the time will say that when it will come. Maybe by 2030 we can realize. I think so.
We might even realize that it may happen sooner rather than later. To the question that we had before about the life cycles, I think you always put aside some money to buy a battery and replace it, and for some downtime. But what happened is, in the past, with inverters, for example, or with panels, at times, like at the very beginning of the solar industry, when we had the bigger plants, people would put away the money. And then they will realize 10 years later, actually the panels were like 1/10 of the money that they put away to change the panels. So actually, in actual fact, they had a ton of money there that, you know, they had saved, but they didn't need. So this is one of the things that you do, is a little bit of financial engineering to make sure that your project is there. And then you realize over time that actually the prices come down. So, all right. What is the cost of storage for more than 4 hours? Any case study showing the ROI? Either of you have any?
We received bids around $350 per kilowatt hour.
Right. So it's not worth it today, right?
Yes.
Rahul, try now.
Yeah.
Oh.
So can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. So yeah, again, I think this question in terms of is it longer duration storage worthwhile now or not? That is not a generic question which you can answer, right? It's like, okay, is it worth traveling in a car with a driving range of 200 kilometer versus 300 kilometer? It depends on how long you need to drive, and do you have time, and do you have ability to recharge the vehicle or refuel the vehicle in between. So I think that's where sometimes people do miss out, where I think with storage, it is the application is very, very much important. And you can choose a different technology based on that application. But obviously, if you are just trying to decide if you want to set up a manufacturing plant and which technology you want to manufacture, you may choose a technology which is most applicable for more applications. But otherwise, as a user, depending on your application, you may choose different technologies. At the same time, we do see some convergence happening where, for example, for last 100+ years, lead acid batteries have dominated the energy storage space, although for certain applications, nickel metal hydride or nickel cadmium batteries did come up, or even people right now do use dry cell batteries as the primary batteries, although they are much more costly in terms of a dollar per kilowatt hour energy delivered from those batteries, but customers do use it. Similarly, we expect lithium-ion batteries to dominate the industry for next at least 10 to 15 years, but there are a lot of new innovative technologies coming up. They will find their niche applications where those technologies can also be manufactured, and R&D can continue in those areas.
Okay, thank you very much, Rahul, and thank you very much, Bharat and Shashank. We don't have a lot of other time, so would you like to say some final words, or if you've looked at a question that you are burning to answer or anything like that? Or otherwise, I just thank you very much for your time. It is certainly a pleasure and a privilege to have the Indian Energy Storage Alliance, and also SECI, and also like a company that has just managed to make such feats, you know, in the market. I am super proud to see that the prices are coming down. You know, coal has, by definition, been the main energy resource in India, and I am so glad that it's going to change, and it's going to change based on pure economics. You know, like this stuff doesn't make sense anymore, because the reality is, you know, we've talked about this a million times, but India was not going to shift away from coal unless it was the economical thing to do, right? Because there is so much.
Yes,
so I am so glad. And, you know, my challenge to you guys is to keep this going so that it goes down even more, and you show us the way, because I think if batteries plus solar and wind can be cheaper than coal, then there is absolutely no reason to keep those coal plants going anywhere.
Yes.
So thank you very much, Rahul. Thank you very much, Bharat and Shashank. It's been a pleasure learning from you today. And thank you very much to everyone in the audience. And we'll see you next time.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Belen.
Thank you.